For those of you who've been showing up to the webinars here at Woodpecker, I'm Justin Zimmerman, Director of Partnerships, and on a daily, if not weekly basis, I am looking for the best partners in technology to find great tools to help you improve your processes and systems. And then for today, my partner here with us, Adam, is going to be a partner in process, in approach, in strategy from Sales Impact Academy, who over a year ago, I was traveling around and I ran into them at an event. And I heard what they were doing around putting together sales training to help companies work with other companies to get better results, especially in the B2B software space. And so when I heard and saw the playbooks that they were producing, and I said, you know what, this is not just for B2B sales. This is going to open up the minds and possibilities for people who are doing all types of sales, who are trying to get decision makers. And sometimes the one key contact as you're prospecting might not be the decision maker, how to find the decision makers through something we're going to get into a little bit called multi-threading. And so if you look at the title here, a teams-based approach. So you, someone on your team, or you representing other people on your team to not just get the single one point of failure prospecting approach that a lot of us are encountering, but how to get this multi-threading, as it's called, way to get the decision makers, I think, Adam, you've got a great word for it a little bit later today around the skeptics who block deals, the committees who are looking to make decisions around what your offer is about. And initially at the end, we're going to jump into initially at the end, those two don't go together. Initially, and then at the end, we're going to jump into how to put some of this methodology into Woodpecker technology. And so look into the chats right now, everybody. Let's give a shout out for yourself. Tell us where you are, your role, your title, maybe in these world of LinkedIn and connections and community, that there's someone that you want to connect with as well. And so you never know, share who you are, what you do, where you work, a little bit about yourself as we wait for the next couple of minutes for people to pile in and show up. And so while you do that, I'm going to let Adam give an introduction to and for himself, about Sales Impact Academy. And at the end, share a little fun fact about yourself.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. So for those who haven't met me before, my name is Adam Figuera. I run marketing here at Sales Impact Academy. And Justin, you gave a great explanation of what SIA actually is and does, but we help go-to-market teams become more productive, achieve better results through sales trainings that we have covering the entire sales spectrum from SDRs to AEs and even post-sales with customer success. Fun fact about me, I scuba dive a lot. And when I'm not scuba diving, I'm just talking about scuba diving. It's pretty much all I do is that and speak on webinars. So I appreciate you having me here today. I'm excited about today's event.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be fantastic. And so just a quick two things to bring up right now. Dave Rogers asks, will a replay of this webinar be emailed out? And so I know everyone has got different time commitments today. And so I do hope you can stay to the end. We've always got the best for last. And but yes, it will be emailed out to you. I know some of you are calling in from different parts of the world. It could be midnight. It could be 2 a.m. We get all sorts of viewers from around the world. And so I can appreciate that. So stay as long as possible. We're going to jump into some housekeeping items right now. One of them is Damien from Woodpecker is going to be in the chats in the Q&A. And so if you have questions about what we're talking about, use the Q&A section for questions about products, about process, to chat amongst ourselves. Of course, feel free to connect with us and me and Adam as we go along today, as well as feel free to connect and share with others. Because as I say in every one of these webinars, people come for the content, but they stay for the community and the chats. And so there's always a fun opportunity there. And so with that said, I know during the course of every webinar, people reach out to me and ask me for the slide deck. Obviously, I know what's coming here today. And so this is your chance and opportunity right now to get a copy of what we're going to present. And so I ask if you have any interest in the templates, the frameworks and formats that we're going to be showing you, take out your phone, hold it to your screen. You should see a little pop-up show up to make it super simple and easy. It should send me an email. So that way, when I'm done with the webinar, I can follow up with you and send you access to the slide deck. And so we'll take a couple of seconds right now. So those of you who are doing that, of course, I'm going to ask Damien to drop into the chats for those of you who are using Apple, and sometimes the app doesn't show up for the mail, and so you can just see the little snippet of an email, who to send it to me, what the subject line and body ought to be, so I know it's you to follow up. And so there's Damien dropping it right now, so the email for the slides you can see in the screen, and that's just as good as holding your phone up to the screen. And so one more item for housekeeping. This one is, if you've attended any of my webinars, you know that I use polls all the time. They're really, really, really helpful for a couple of reasons. One, it gives me an idea throughout the webinar today, who's on, what you're here for, and how we can fine tune things as we move forward. And of course, at the end of every webinar, I present solutions and options. So if there are things that you want to learn more about around Sales Impact Academy or what Woodpecker does, this gives us an opportunity to follow up with you in a personal way. And so these are really helpful for us to understand who you are, where you are, what you might need from us going forward. And so we've got about 60 people on here today. So I try to get to at least the 50% mark of those who are attending. And so if we can hit, I don't know, what, 30 people, so maybe 10 more, that would be great. I'll spend a couple of seconds right now waiting for everyone else to fill this out, because if you're here looking for a better way to sell into orgs, that's one of the questions I know that Sales Impact Academy is going to be jumping into, and possibly something you're interested in having them follow up with you later. If you're looking for a better email sales tool, well, hopefully you love Woodpecker and you're using Woodpecker, but for those of you who are not currently, we'd love to see how we might be able to help and serve you. And of course, LinkedIn automation, something new that we recently added to the whole mix. And so you can now use Woodpecker and LinkedIn together to double your ways to improve your connection and response rates. And so I think we'll wait for one more poll response, and then I'm going to hand this over to Adam in a second. All right, thank you. We hit that 60% mark of those of you who are taking the poll. And so if you logged in late, Darshan, yes, if you fill out the screen here, thank you, Damien. Okay, great. I'm going to move on. I love how Damien's in the chats. All right. Thanks everybody for helping on the polls, and maybe I'll share a quick set of results if you're interested in seeing who's here and why, and then I'll hand that over to Adam to fill things out. And as you can see here, 70% of you are looking for better ways to sell into orgs, 35% of you are interested in a better email tool, 26% are interested in a better LinkedIn tool, and then you can see all the breakdown of who's here and why. All right, thanks so much. And Adam, I'm going to hand the spotlight over to you and microphone. And so it's all yours, ready to go.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Justin. I really appreciate that. So, obviously this slide says the big problem selling into orgs, right? And it says problem singular, right? And I think if you're in sales and on this webinar today, you probably feel pain, in a lot of areas. Certainly if you're working in tech, right, you feel all of the headwinds that everyone is feeling in terms of, lack of budget, shrinking organizations and so forth. All of those things are true. All of those things are valid. But one of the things that we have seen persistently over the last decade, I would say, is that buying committees, right? The decision-making group on the other side of the table is those buying committees are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which makes navigating that from a selling process and ultimately ushering those deals across the finish line more difficult than it's ever before. It's been a persistent trend going all the way back probably to the Great Recession over 15 years ago. And let me just try to make sure I can advance to the next slide there. Justin, you want to go to, I'm having trouble advancing actually, if you just want to help me and go to the, great. So a lot of you are probably familiar with this book, The Challenger Sale. It was first published in 2011. It remains relevant today. There are entire training programs that are shaped around this very concept and this idea of being a challenger, and the idea of the Challenger Sale itself. And let's go to Justin, I'm having trouble advancing. So I'm just going to call it out to you, if that's all right with you. We'll go from slide to slide. So this book, we're 13 years removed from when the Challenger Sale was first published. But the basic premise of the book was to be the most effective sales rep possible, you are well served by challenging your buyers' pre-existing beliefs, driving deals through insight and thought leadership. And there was a second premise that came out of that, which is, well, in order to do that, one of the ways to do that is you ought to tailor your message to each stakeholder who is part of this buying process, right? And again, one of the things they're talking about is these buying communities, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There are more roles, more stakeholders, more interests involved. And so to be successful, to really be a challenger, you've got to adjust your message for each person at that table and what they want to get out of the conversation, what they want to get out of the transaction. Justin, let's go to the next one. But there were a couple problems with this, right? So this was sort of all the rage in 2011 and 2012. And by the way, this comes from the authors themselves. There were a couple problems that came out of the challenger sale and implementing this particular approach or methodology, which was that messages turned out to be too tailored, right? That there could be too much of a good thing, because when stakeholders would regroup to make a decision, what they had discovered was that they had all been told something else about what the software was and could do. And there was confusion sitting around the buying table of what actually is this? You were told this, you were told that, I was told this. What are we buying here? And it created a problem that I'm sure everybody is familiar with today, which is the problem of no decision, right? Which is you didn't lose to a competitor, you didn't lose to lack of budget, you lost to no decision. That these complex and increasingly large buying groups would get back together, get into the situation that I just described, and the only thing that they could ultimately agree on in the end was, let's not do anything at all because we don't actually know what it is that we're buying. Let's go to the next slide. So the authors of the book, Matt and Brian, got something wrong, which is what I just described. Let's go to the next one, Justin. And that led to the sequel. So we go from the challenger sale to the challenger customer, which, if I recall, came out around 2013 or 2014. I still talk to a lot of people in sales today who don't realize that this book even exists. And if they do realize that it exists, they don't realize that it was the sequel, right? That it literally was published to address the things that the authors felt they had gotten wrong in the challenger sale. And thank you, Justin, for advancing for me. You have good insight and foresight. So that gets us to what the basic premise of the sequel book is, which is an admission that the challenger sale had actually gotten some important things wrong. That being a challenge seller wasn't actually enough. What matters is who you challenge and how. And there was quite a lot of emphasis that was put on focusing on winning the skeptic, right? So typically account executives, sales directors, whatever title they go by, would spend a lot of time working their champion, right? Makes sense for a lot of reasons. But the basic premise of the challenger customer was work the skeptic even harder, because it is often the skeptic who is the most influential voice in the room. And if you can get that skeptic over the finish line, then you've made it a lot easier to ultimately close a deal. And another insight was, yes, the account executive still needs to tailor this message, but focus should be on finding the common ground among every stakeholder, rather than being so super targeted to every person, where we could get ourselves into this situation of every buyer felt like they had been told something else and sold something else. Find the common ground that all of the stakeholders actually care about. And there was a third insight, by the way, that's not reflected here, which is between when the challenger sale was first published in 2011 and when the sequel came out, the challenger customer, The average size of a buying committee in complex sales was even bigger. And today, I believe it's up to over, 8. If we're talking about, truly complex organizational sales, B2B sales, for example, there can be more than 8 people on the other side of the table who are ultimately involved in that decision, including legal and procurement and so forth, right? You name it. And it gets us to sort of the thrust of today's webinar, which is knowing everything that's going on, right? There's got to be a better way to sell into complex, large organizations where so many people are involved in the buying decision. But what is the best way to actually do that? We can go to the next one, Justin. So what I want to talk about today is a team-based approach to selling, and some of the ways that we've implemented that for ourselves at Sales Impact Academy, and ways that I've done that, working with other organizations as well. And before I get into the team-based approach, I want to actually draw a comparison to what is the model that probably most of you follow today, and that most of you are familiar with, which is AE-led sales, where if you're the account executive or the sales director, you're the point person, right? You're responsible for multi-threading. You're responsible for understanding who all the people are who are involved in the decision-making process. And the deal is yours. The bag is yours to carry. This is the way that most organizations work today. I'm going to tell you why I think that's the case. But it's really quite a lot to ask of a single person to manage and execute. And with the exception of the most senior and experienced and strategic AEs, they're prone to a lot of issues here that result in deals falling out of pipeline, prospects going radio silent, and so forth. But this is the way that a lot of organizations actually operate today. Let's compare that to the other way of doing this, though. Let's go to the next one, Justin.
I just wanted to pause and ask,
Sure.
for the sake of everyone who's never heard the term multi-threading, could you just spend a couple of seconds just describing AE versus multi-threading in general?
So multi-threading is the idea that there are many people involved in the complex decision-making process. You're not selling to a single person, right? I get you on the phone, I give you my pitch, you make a decision, you want to buy. The idea of multi-threading is uncovering through discovery, through evaluation, through whatever the stages of your opportunities are, who are the other people who are involved in the decision, and how do I get in front of them? How do I uncover what it is that they care about? How do I uncover what each person's pain is and the goals that they have, right? Because let's take a hypothetical example. I'm glad you asked that question, Justin. Let's take a hypothetical example where there are 5 people. 5. That'd be a small group, by the way. 5 people involved in a decision-making process. If you, as the AE, have gotten 4 of those people to say, yes, we love this product, we want to move forward, but you've done nothing to get that 5th person, up to speed on the decision, you can't expect that deal to close. Okay, you can have 4 people on the 1 yard line, right? And you think that this deal is about to close. You have it reflected in your CRM. This is it. This is at 90%. I'm expecting it to close, by the end of the week. There's a whole other person in this decision-making process who you have completely ignored. So while your 4 people, you say, are down at the 1 yard line, ready to get into the end zone, your 5th person's down at the 50 yard line still. They've been ignored. You have not addressed them in the sales process. You have not done what you need to do to bring that person along, understand what it is going to take to get their vote in this process. That deal's not going to close. Now, in this particular example, Justin, at least I know who the fifth person is. One of the premises of the challenger customer is, if we look at the subtitle again, it was selling to the hidden influencer in the room. Hidden influencer. This idea that there is somebody involved in the background who you may not even know about. This is where AEs can get into a lot of trouble because they're forecasting deals that are going to close that never will. Let me say that again. Forecasting deals to close that never will. I forget what the actual statistic is off the top of my head. It used to be in a previous version of the pitch deck that we used at Sales Impact Academy, but it was something over 50%. It was over 50%. Okay, humor me for a second. Over 50% of deals that are forecast to close never will. And you can often bake it back to this idea here, which is poor or no multi-threading at all. That there are people involved in the decision-making process the AE did not know about.
Yeah, and that's what I love about where we're going next with this. And then for everyone who stays with us to the end, there is some technology I discovered inside of Woodpecker that's going to allow this to actually be something that, whether you're following an AE-led or team-based approach, you'll be able to put some multi-threading in place where you get to target based on title and role that allows you to have these aligned messages that help you reach the aspirations of what the sequel of the challenger sale is. And so take us away and explaining a little bit more now about the team-based approach and the model that you've seen work here.
Yeah, so the team-based approach, the hallmark of it is, you are leveraging many more roles, personas, and subject matter experts on your side, the selling side, and engaging them in a very formal way. I want to emphasize that, in a very formal way, as part of the sales process. And of course, the AE, is still involved. They're playing that role of the coach calling plays, the quarterback passing the ball. But really what you're doing here is you're creating pairings between the selling organization and the buying organization, as you see here, right? Finance to finance, marketing to marketing. This is going to differ based on what your organization does and sells. So don't read too much into the titles here, but the idea is you're creating pairings between roles on the selling and the buying side, and engaging these people in a much more purposeful way. This is what team-based selling looks like, sort of from a org chart, for lack of a better term, standpoint. But I'm going to explain a lot more about this and how to actually put it into practice. We can go to the next slide. So what are the advantages of team-based selling? I think they're probably obvious. You are enlisting true subject matter experts, on your side. It's a bit much to ask the AE to be an expert in everything, right? Their expertise is sales, not, if you're in financial services, finance, or not, if you're in MarTech, marketing technology, marketing. These are sales experts, right? So in the team-based approach, you are leveraging more of the SMEs who are in your organization. That leads to point number 2, which is just enhanced credibility, all around. You're bringing these experts in. It's a much more high-touch sales process because the prospect, the buyer, is having interactions with, more than just the account executive, SMEs, as well as these tend to be more senior people. And all things being equal, because that should actually lead to a faster decision. Those are the advantages. Now, as it says here, if it feels like this is an old idea, it's because it actually is, right? I think none of what I'm saying is actually, new or novel to some people. Let's go to the next slide. People have been talking about this for decades, right? I mean, some of these books here, everybody works in sales. Every job is a sales job. Everyone's in sales. These aren't new books that came out in 2022. Some of these are 2 decades old. This isn't actually a new idea. But let's go to the next one. So if we all agree with the premise, right? I mean, everybody works in sales. We're all in sales. We hear it all the time, right? If everyone agrees with that, then why do so few companies adopt a team-based approach to selling? And for those that do, why do even fewer do it well. That's going to get us, if we go to the next slide, it's going to get us to the disadvantages, or just think of it more as the challenges, if you will. First is coordination. It is hard to do this, right? Enlisting all of these other people in your organization who have day jobs and other responsibilities to the org, getting them all in the same place to help you, the AE, let's be real. That's hard. Internal support is often lip service, right? So when you hear a CEO, for example, say, "Let me know what you need. I'm happy to send an email." And then, you go and ask them, "Okay, please send this to these people." You know that it's hard, right? It often feels like it's lip service. It doesn't get done. The email gets lost in the CEO's, inbox. It feels like what you hear is lip service there. It's hard to put it into practice. All of that leads to point number 3, which is it's really time consuming. And the bottom line here is organizations try this a lot, but in the end, it feels to the AE, it feels to the sales director like it's often just easier to brute force these deals and manage them solo because the team-based approach is just really, really hard. We can go to the next one after this. So what I want to talk about in my portion of today's webinar is how I think you can maximize the advantages of a team-based approach to selling while minimizing the disadvantages. And you can't really ever fully eliminate them. So that's why it doesn't say that, but it really says minimizing the disadvantages. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is just from personal experience, things that we have done not just at Sales Impact Academy, but that I've been a part of throughout my career to really make this work much more effectively for organizations. So if we go to the next one, I've really distilled this down to what I believe are 10 tips for mastering team-based selling. So we're going to do a countdown from 10 to 1. I wouldn't read too much into the actual, order. The order, if anything, is from a flow standpoint for me, but not necessarily, order of importance or efficacy. So let's go one by one. Thanks, Justin. So first, tip number 10, in making team-based selling work for your organization, build your internal team for every single deal. There is no concept in team-based selling where it is the same internal team for every single deal that you're working. As you do discovery and as you do multi-threading and you do it well, you still have to do, the AE is still responsible for knowing who is on the buying committee. As you figure out who is involved in the decision-making process on the other side of the table, you're going to assemble a different deal every single time. Matching buyers with sellers on an account-by-account basis. It is never the same team, one-size-fits-all approach. This is an important tip because if you are trying to assemble the same team every single time, you're going to exhaust those people, okay? So really be purposeful about the selling committee. And that's how you should think about it. The selling committee that you assemble, because they do tend to be different and ought to be different for every single deal. That's tip number 10. Tip number 9, train everyone on your selling committee on the pitch and the value prop. Make sure everyone on your team knows, there's a certain bit of irony here. Make sure everyone on your team knows what you do, how you're different, why you're the best option for them. You would think that if you're engaging, your chief financial officer, your chief marketing officer, that these people all know what this is. But oftentimes, more often than not, I have found this to, not be the case. Or in the absolute best case scenario, they think they know what the value prop and pitch is, but they all have a different way of delivering it. That's actually sort of a recipe for disaster, and it sort of reflects what we talked about maybe about 10 minutes ago in the context of the challenger sale. When everybody says a different thing, you get into that situation where the buyer can't make a decision at that point because they were all felt like they were told and sold something different. So you can't leave this to chance, can't make any assumptions there. If you're selecting someone and asking someone to be a part of your selling committee, The AE has an important role here. Train everyone on the pitch and the value props. Make sure you are all aligned. At the end of the day, the bottom bullet here, if you want a team member, someone on your committee to say X, tell them exactly what X is. Let's go to tip number 8. For AEs, prep your team before every interaction. So I run a marketing department, and this is something that we do all the time. In public relations, if I'm going to put my CEO in front of a journalist, in front of a news reporter, in front of somebody on television, we are never just going to wing that. We're going to understand what it is that reporter wants to talk about. What do they want to ask? We're going to do a lot of research into what that reporter has mentioned previously on this particular topic. What's their angle, right? Are they positive about a topic, negative about a topic? This is all research that public relations and comms teams do. And it leads to a prep package before an interview, actually takes place. The AE needs to be thinking in exactly these same terms. Before a big meeting, where maybe you have the chief financial officer of the prospect on the other side of the table, and you're bringing your own CFO to the table, match, seniority with seniority, level of expertise with level of expertise. Make sure you're prepping those individuals. What is the current state of the deal? What was the result of the most recent conversation? What's the desired outcome for today's conversation? What do we want to get out of this? And key things that you want that person to say. Hey, Chief Financial Officer, no matter what, before we end this call, I want you to say this, because I think it's going to be really important for them to hear and really important for it to come from you. That preparation, really important for making this work. Discuss the anticipated objections that you think are going to come up. That's the whole reason why you've built this selling committee in the first place. That's the whole reason you're bringing in these subject matter experts, because they're probably better equipped at handling the objections than you are. That's only going to be the case if you adequately prep them. Let's go to the next slide. Number 7, team-based selling happens throughout the funnel, right? So we can often fall into the trap of thinking that team-based selling is limited to just 2 scenarios. Prospecting, where maybe I just want the message to come from my CEO because that'll lead to more meetings. Or scenario number 2, which is a deal has gone radio silent and I'm going to call out the big guns to try to resurrect it. That's a very myopic view. Team-based selling happens throughout the funnel. Yes, prospecting is important, but in discovery, you can leverage your SMEs to craft good probing questions that uncover pain better and faster. Pitching, get feedback, get practice and feedback before you actually get in front of the prospect. If you're pitching somebody in finance, if you're pitching the CFO, I keep coming back to the CFO as an example, pitch to your own CFO first and ask that person to poke holes. Right? Don't, as we say at SIA, don't practice on your prospects, right? Practice with your own internal SMEs where the stakes are low. You can afford to make those mistakes, then go into the real calls. Evaluation. You can leverage person-to-person follow-ups. Let's go to the next slide. Same thing with mutual success plan. These are our own opportunity stages, by the way. Person-to-person follow-ups, just that high touch, sales process, making people feel valued. The proposal and pricing, right? You can go the extra mile. You can have every member of your internal team sign the letter that's on page 1 of your proposal template. So it's not just the AE, not just the CEO, but every single person who is involved in those conversations. It's just high touch, and the details matter. And finally, closing, share the love, more person-to-person outreach. Let everyone on the buying committee hear from their counterpart on the selling committee about how excited they are about the chance to work together, right? And continuing the dialogue and the relationship after the deal is closed. That's what this is all about, guys. Let's go to the next one. Number 6, provide scripts. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier of don't just wing it. And if you want somebody to say X, tell them what X is. But this is really about allowing the AE to still control the message in accordance with the desired outcomes. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot of an email that came ultimately from our CEO at Sales Impact Academy. But I wrote it. Right? So I'm leveraging the CEO's name, I'm leveraging the CEO's title, but I'm trying to control that message, right? To sit there and ask my CEO, can you come up with something that's 3 or 4 paragraphs long and send it out? Never going to happen, right? So I'm providing the script, or at least the starting point. And that way that I can control the message. I know exactly what's going out. I know what the call to action is that we're putting out there, how we're going to measure that, and so forth. Provide those, scripts, really going to help the AE out a lot. Tip number 5, though. Oh, well, sorry, we have an actually go back one, Justin. This is an example of that tip, that execution, actually working in practice. So this was a message that was going to a very, very senior person. Well, look, you can see that they replied, right? Hey, Dan, definitely open to a discussion. I'd like to include our head of sales in that conversation. You free this week? So this was a CEO to CEO message. Now, if the account executive had sent that, I mean, let's be honest here. It wouldn't have gotten a reply. I think we can be real about that, right? It wouldn't have gotten a reply. But when I leverage that senior to senior relationship, it gets a reply, right? CEOs want to maintain and have relationships with each other. The CEO, of course, corrals the head of sales into it. That's how it works, right? And it all started with providing a simple script. Now we can go to number 5. Thanks, Justin. But you want to be flexible with those scripts. Executives don't write the way that sales reps do. And so making sure that the other people on your selling committee still have authenticity of voice is really important. So when I'm writing for somebody else, I try to capture what I think their attitude is, their personality, their personal brand. It's just going to make it that much easier to get their approval and say, yes, good to send, good to go. I worked with the CEO well over a decade where part of her personal brand, she never capitalized anything. Nothing. There was never anything in the email that was capitalized. That was her brand. So if I was writing an email for her to come from her, I need to capture that. If it's overly formal, overly effusive, right? She was never going to buy into it, never going to send it. You got to capture people's voices. So be flexible with those scripts. Let's go to the next one. And again, you have an example of that here, right? So this is just a single screenshot. You don't see the entire back and forth that came from that came out of Slack, which is where I took the screenshot from. But this was another interaction that I was having with my CEO, Dan, where we were just riffing back and forth, trying to nail the voice that he wanted to have. And he inserts clearly some personalization here. We're looking at where people are. He was in New York, so if somebody else was in New York, it would come from him. If a prospect happened to be in London, well, guess what? We have several senior execs in London as well. We might leverage it from them as well. But you see the back and forth, you see the collaboration here of how do I capture my voice while also advancing us towards the outcomes that we want to achieve. He's ending it with tweak this, make this better. This is the collaborative nature of what team-based selling looks like. Let's go to the next one. And where necessary, leverage technology for scale. This is where Justin's going to come in and talk a little bit about how to actually do this in Woodpecker. But where possible, use technology, send this centrally, right? When you get past a certain number of emails, again, it's hard to pull off, right? It's also prone to error. The wrong message is going to go to the wrong person, or it's just not going to be sent, at all. Technology can really be your friend here. Personal one-to-one messages can get hard to do at scale, but personality and personal brand is really, really easy to achieve. And Justin's going to show you that in a little bit. Let's go to the next one. Number 3, never bait and switch. Gosh, this is the pet peeve of mine. If you're leveraging these other people in the selling process, you got to deliver what you say, right? If your CEO offers a meeting, offers coffee, or offers, hey, let's meet for. Are you in New York? Let's meet for drinks. If that's what you're offering, then you need to deliver it, period, full stop, right? One of the things that I've seen, before, I won't mention the company by name, but this was a couple months ago, a CEO reached out to me wanting to meet. I said, yes, agreed to that meeting. And then 15 minutes before the meeting was going to start, the CEO canceled it and handed it off to somebody else in the organization. Complete bait and switch, left a very bad taste in my mouth. If you're going to offer it, you need to deliver it. Let's go to the next one. Number 2, engage your CS team too. Please, this can be so powerful. Bring customer success into your sales process. Introduce your prospect to their future CS contacts so that they can start building that relationship, right? Establishing those relationships, putting names with faces creates confidence to move forward with a deal because they've met the team that they're going to be working with, and they know that that team understands what their pain is and what their goals are before they ever sign on the dotted line. So always have CS as part of your selling committee. Let's go to the next one. And then finally, be proactive, right? I sort of talked about this earlier, but team-based selling is not just a reactive strategy, where my example here is prospects gone radio silent, deals gone dark. Okay, time to reach out to the CEO and have him or her send a message. No, not at all. Engage your team early for those personal touches, right? Reach out in advance of an important meeting. Acknowledge, thank the prospect for coming, even if that senior person on your side can't come. A little personal message saying thank you so much. So-and-so AE has told me all about today's meeting. I wish that I could be a part of it. Unfortunately, I'm triple booked, but I just wanted to take the time in advance to send a personal note for me saying how excited we are to be having today's call and how excited we are about the prospect of working with you. Thanks, right? Those kinds of proactive personal touches are your best friend. Let's go to the next one. So this is where I'm going to hand it off to Justin, because Woodpecker has some really awesome technology for how to actually, going back to my tip earlier, leverage technology to do this at scale, which really helps to eliminate some of the coordination and time challenges that I talked about earlier. So Justin, I'm going to hand it off to you so that you can show everyone how this works and what it actually looks like.
Great. Thank you for setting up those I would say 2 key frameworks or mindsets to help now take the methodology and turn it into technology. And so I'm going to do a quick verbal recap for those of you, because I know we did the poll in the beginning and gave me some insight, again, who's here and who's trying to learn what today. And so some people are solo prospectors, and the ability to be a team isn't an option, but for everybody, the ability to multi-thread is. And so I want to highlight for those of you who are solo prospectors, the technological implementation around, hey, I want to multi-thread. I want to message the CEO and send them a piece of content or a prospecting message that resonates with them. I want to also reach out to the CFO. I want to reach out to potentially the CMO, depending on what you're selling and how you're selling. There's not just one particular person, as Adam mentioned. And so if you're prospecting just, one person to one person, you're missing out on, Adam said, the hidden influencers in the deal. And so regardless of whether you are a big team and you have an ability to do team-based selling, everybody has the ability to do the multi-threading approach. And so I'm going to jump into that right now. So for those of you who are currently Woodpecker customers, hey, thanks so much. We love having you here. I'm going to highlight some things that you might already know and add some things that you don't know. And for those of you who are not yet Woodpecker customers, this is all going to be exciting and new for you as well. And so within Woodpecker, within the last, I would say, month and a half, we've added the ability to also do LinkedIn automations. And so not only can you do the regular email drip sequence prospecting emails that you're used to, but you can also add LinkedIn outreach, DMs, personalized profile visits, and ways to increase your visibility and likelihood of getting a response. And so whether that's response to reaching out to a CFO, reaching out to a CMO, reaching out to just using the C-suite as the example, you know who your influencers are in a deal. You can now think in terms of Woodpecker campaigns specifically designed on a per role type that allows you to both do LinkedIn and email and LinkedIn. And so for those of you, you're probably already familiar with this. And so within Woodpecker, you can go create a campaign. We can call it CFO Outreach. And for those of you who have the ability to get your CFO or your CEO to agree to be part of this multi-threading campaign, you can set up campaigns in Woodpecker by using, let's just call it an alias. And so if your CEO's normal email address is Justin at Woodpecker.com, you might want to put CEO at Woodpecker.com. And that way you can start emailing out on behalf of your CEO, emailing out on behalf of your CFO, and both managing the copy and content that goes out from them to your target prospects who are other CFOs or CMOs or CEOs, and not have to burden your CEO, your C-suite with a message every single time you want them to have it approved, having them to manage an inbox, which they're not going to read and respond to. And so starting at the top, if you think about it, you can get through some internal conversations, the buy-in to get an alias created for CFO at Woodpecker.com or CMO at Woodpecker.com. And you can start to build out on a per campaign basis that outreach to other CFOs and CMOs in the C-suites that you're trying to influence. And so through LinkedIn, you can now also in Woodpecker add the opportunity to send an outreach message on behalf from your CMO or CFO to go visit their profile, right? And so when someone visits my profile on LinkedIn, I can see their name, and I go click and say, oh, this person visited me. And it gives a little bit more trust and visibility into what will eventually be the outreach. And so this is what I see on my end. And so what you want to be able to do is make an impression before you make a prospecting email or LinkedIn DM go out. And so if you want to have this visibility, there are some settings that you need to have inside of LinkedIn in order to have your profile visits viewed. And so I think Damien's going to drop into the chats right now. If you don't already have public view set in your LinkedIn profile, and if you're getting the buy-in from your CMO or CFO to do this on their behalf inside of Woodpecker, you're going to want them to turn this on as well. So that way their profile visits will also show up in your prospects LinkedIn feed. And so that way you can make that impression. Because one of the next things you can do after a profile visit is then you can set 2 days later or 1 day later inside of Woodpecker a connection request. Right. And so you're trying to build rapport. And so back to Adam's point, like attracts like. If a CFO gets a message from another CFO, a CMO gets a message from another CMO, there's a sense of rapport and affinity. That's really at the heart of what a lot of Adam was talking about. And so the likelihood and chances of that connection request being received and accepted from another CMO goes much higher. And so you can see here, I just have some copy in there. This is part of a campaign that I'm running that I use all the time. And so it's going to be different for you. And then what I also do simultaneously in conjunction with the LinkedIn outreach inside of Woodpecker is I also have an email sent right around the same time as that connection profile, that connection request and personal message is sent. And this is something that you might want to copy, at least the header at the top here. And it would say, hey, just in case you're not on LinkedIn that much, here's an email of something I just DM'd you. And so LinkedIn is really great. I've seen it produce 20 to 50% increases in my response responses to the messages in my outbound. And so I've actually put LinkedIn first now, and then email in conjunction with that second, to then get that message read and responded to. And so one thing I've noticed is that you're really not going to want to have more than a 2-day delay between those messages being sent out, between the profile visit and the email and personalization request. Another thing that I noticed is when it comes to LinkedIn, that you're going to want to send a follow-up message in Woodpecker about 2 days, 3 days later. And as you can see here, it just says, "Hey, Alex, just checking in to see if you saw my last message." The reason why I send that, and I've seen an additional 20 to 30% response from this message, what I realize is that a lot of people have LinkedIn on their phones, and when they get a connection request, they'll just hit accept. And when you hit just accept, you actually don't see the message that was a part of that personalized connection request. And so what I do just for a fair amount of time later, we'll send out just, "Hey, you saw my message." That will then bring it back up into their message feed. They'll go see the message above. And then what I noticed, and you can see here, the response is, "Hey, yeah, I just I saw it." They responded back. You can see the time frame here, 8:59 that went out, 9:27, almost 30 minutes later, they saw it with a positive reply. And so one of the cool things is, now that you know about multi-threading, now that you know about team-based selling, you have an opportunity, whether you have a team or not, to use an approach with Woodpecker's email and LinkedIn automation to make an impression both in their social media and in their inbox to get those replies. And so in addition to that, one of the other great features that people like putting into their Woodpecker campaigns for that multi-threading approach are video emails. And so if you're interested in learning more about how to use video email inside your Woodpecker campaigns, Damien's going to drop some links and some articles into the chats for you to learn a little bit more about a webinar we did with the LinkedIn influencer, Nick Sigelski, who talked about how he does it here. And so look inside the chats, go click those links now so they're up in your browser, because when the webinar is over, these go away. And so what's great is you can actually think about it in terms of multi-threading, where you can have your CMO, your CFO create a little bit of a video. You can drop it into your CFO or CMO sequence, and then that can now be part of the prospecting campaign, that while that video is one and done, that you can use over and over. And so if you think about what that message might be from a CMO to a CFO, and Adam talked about those common objections, those common things that CFOs and CMOs are going to talk about, you can capture that in content from the CMO and have that personalized outreach as a video inside of a Woodpecker campaign. For those of you who are using and interested in ChatGPT and some of the AI writers, we've just released an ability so you can create some copy and content, and we'll go in there and you can play with some of the settings to actually have some AI written copy and content for you. And so that's free, part of being a Woodpecker customer. And you can see a little button at the bottom at the dialogue around that. And so Damien will also drop a link into the chats. And so if you're interested in our AI writer, you can learn more about it there. This is actually really, really, really important for anyone doing that multi-threading and team-based approach. And so if you think about it, if you do get your CMO, CFO on board, the last thing that they're going to want and be able to do is respond to those emails, respond to that inbox that you created for them. And so what Woodpecker will let you do is manage emails and LinkedIn soon, all from one inbox. And so that way, if anybody replies to the special CEO or CFO inbox, you as the AE, you as the prospector can go in there and manage those responses as that person without actually having to pull the CMO or CFO into it. And so that's a great way to have all of your multi-threaded campaigns inside of Woodpecker, but not necessarily needing all of the SME subject matter experts, C-suite people that you got buy-in to be participating in the campaigns to own and manage that. There's some LinkedIn A/B testing coming out soon. So that's always really great because, nothing's ever one and done. You're always going to want to try different messaging, different titles. And so if you want to run those variants, you can from within Woodpecker. And then one of the last things I'm going to talk about here, and I think this might be one of the most important things to talk about here when running a team-based and or multi-threading approach, is our relationship with LeadFuse. Now, they are a data source that gives you the two key most important things necessary to run any campaign. Actually, let's make it three most important things when running a multi-threading campaign. You need an email to send emails. You need a LinkedIn URL profile to send connection requests and messages in. But then lastly, you also need a role and a title. So that way you can target those campaigns, those leads into the right campaign. And so I'm sure other companies do this. I've spent the most time with LeadFuse. What you can do is you can go into LeadFuse, you can type the industry, you can type the role, you can type the title, and then you can then say, show me a list of these people in this industry that match CFO exactly, right? And then with one button, you can press what's called their Fuse bot to push those leads into Woodpecker. So you can see here on the left, there's the results of running that targeted list of people who have a very specific role or title to run a targeted multi-threaded account. And then on the right-hand side, you can see I can drop them right into that campaign designed for that role and title. And so if you think about it, you can have now at scale, a campaign that you search inside a LeadFuse for CFOs, push them into the CFO campaign. One for CEOs, look for CEOs in LeadFuse, push them into your Woodpecker CFO campaign, and it will grab the email, it will grab their URL profile for LinkedIn, and then push them all into that campaign. And then when you have it set up, it's really set and forget in a way where you can, at least for the time being, manage and see what type of responses you get. And so for me, this seems to be like the ultimate package for those who are trying to influence multiple people in the buying process. So that way, as Adam said, you don't get that message confusion. You can have an aligned version of the story of what you're selling across all the most important departments and people who are eventually going to buy in. And so you can set meetings with those people, and as opposed to relying on one single point of failure or one champion when there might be a skeptic in the audience. And so one of the questions I get often is, well, what are some of the CRMs that we integrate with? And so Damien will drop a little thing into the link right into the chats right now. So that way, if you want to learn a little bit more about the CRMs Woodpecker integrates with, if you are a customer and you want to learn more about how to get more of what we have, or you're not yet a customer and want to see if it's right for you, I know CRMs are an important part of making a decision to buy any sort of prospecting and automation tool. And so I've got two more things for you right now. And so this is the part where, based on what you heard, based on what you've seen, questions you might have, things I didn't answer, things that are not completely clear for you, which I'm sure there always are things that could be better addressed. I'm going to pop a poll right now, so that way you can tell me, based on what you've learned today, where you are going or like to go in the future, how we might be able to help you. And so for those of you who are interested in learning more about how to get more out of your Woodpecker account, for those of you who are want to learn more on how to build the team and strategy and workflows, there are some options on the screen right now for you in this poll to help us understand how to help you next. And so the first question is just really a simple one, where if you have Woodpecker already, obviously that makes a big difference to know like how to follow up and communicate with you. If you are not yet a customer and would like to learn more about Woodpecker and our LinkedIn automation, I'm going to follow up with you in a targeted way. If you are already a Woodpecker customer and don't yet have the LinkedIn automation, there's based on how we do things here, there are different ways I need to follow up with you on things. And of course, if you're interested in Sales Impact Academy, their trainings, they have a free trial. You want to learn more about what Adam has said and done, and maybe just exploring some of the questions that didn't get answered here today, we can go through that with you all. And so I'm going to leave that poll up on the screen. I'm also going to flip through some of the links that if you're interested in right now, as you fill things out, you can grab those and plug them in to your browser. And I think with the time being, I see some of the questions in the chats that if we didn't get a chance to answer them today, we will follow up with you in the next day or so. And so, Adam, anything you want to add? Anything you want to add to some of the final thoughts here today?
No, not really. I mean, I think I think the fact that we as sales leaders, as marketers, can leverage technology is great. It's probably the one thing that's made this not work for so many companies over the last decade, right? All of those reasons ultimately, as you heard me say earlier, boiled down to it's just too hard, right? And being able to put a technical solution against it bridges a huge part of that gap. And I'll just say thanks to everyone who has given us the past 60 minutes to talk about this topic, because it's something that Justin and I are both really passionate about.
Thank you so much, Adam. And if you got any value, learned anything out of what we've demonstrated here today, let's give Adam a little round of applause in the chats, a little thumbs up to let him know that he delivered something that's going to make your day, your business, your life a little bit easier, a little bit better. Thank you, Adam, so much for taking the time, digging into this, putting together this deck. And of course, I want to say thank you to all the people who show up continually for the Woodpecker webinars. We love doing this. We hope we make a difference in your life. And we'll be in touch again in your inbox, possibly on your LinkedIn feed around when our next webinar is coming up. And until then, take care and enjoy the rest of your evening or day.